today I said that I'll be starting our new phase in our course. As we mentioned earlier on that we will be doing this course in 4 phases or 4 stages. Number 1 is done, overview is done, and basic concepts are done. Conceptually, you are all ready. Today we'll be moving to step number 2, that today we will see the formal process of preparation of financial statements. And you will see that at least from argument perspective, you don't need to learn anything new. It's just that representation or putting things in a particular way. That's all we will learn now onwards. You have most of the arguments already with you. So let's get started. Now, what are we saying? What are we going to do here? You would have noticed something very obvious by now, that when we were preparing the questions based on accounting equation, something was very obvious that no matter what transaction comes to our purview, we can incorporate its impact in this simple equation, that assets are equal to liabilities. Also, if you would have noticed or if you wouldn't have noticed, in either case, I will tell you one more thing, that if we would have wanted, we could have got an income statement as well as balance sheet right then and there from this accounting equation. Also, let's say you are writing cash, you are writing inventory, you are writing account receivable in your asset, you are writing, let's say, capital in your liability, let's say retained earnings, loan, any other obligation, let's say account payable or salary payable or such thing. Then let's say somebody suddenly asks you after one day that give me income statement and balance sheet for this entity. Then what we would have done? We would have given the total of all these items. This would have created a balance sheet. For example, this much cash, this much inventory, this much account receivable, similarly this much of capital, retained earning, and so forth. Moreover, we would also have been able to give them the numbers of income statement as well. How is that possible? We already have one place where all the numbers of income and expenses were written. All the incomes were coming in this column with the plus sign, and all the expenses were coming in this column with a negative sign. So we have everything that we need. Even then, we have the formal process, which is somewhat different from this. It is not in this manner that we formally prepare financial statement. Why? Because apart from this, one more thing you would have noticed, that even within 10, 12, 15 transactions, the pages started to look really messy. Just imagine, even in a small organization, forget about big organization, where the transactions are going to be in thousands, that system is very quickly going to crumble up. It is for this purpose that we have a separate process of formally preparing the financial statements that we'll be learning in today's class and maybe in the next 2 or 3 classes. The idea is that very neatly we can prepare all the details, we can record everything, and we will summarize a lot of transactions in a different spaces. And finally, we have a very neat income statement and balance sheet ready. And this one will be irrespective of whether you have 10 transactions in the business or you have 1 million or 1 trillion transactions. Fortunately, everything has moved to a computerized system now, but still we need to understand that what might be going on inside the computer program. So we will learn the basic process. So let us get started with this introduction to what we are going to do today. So in the beginning itself, I will give you the steps that we are going to follow in order to prepare financial statements. What are those steps? The steps are going to be as follows. Step number 1 in preparation of financial statement is analyze a transaction. Step number 2, pass something which is called a journal entry. Step number 3, prepare something which is called a ledger. Step number 4, prepare something which is called a trial balance. And finally, step number 5, prepare our income statement and balance sheet, along with something which is called closing entries. Now, these 5 are going to be the steps. In different books, you can see the representation of same steps, maybe in 6 bifurcations, or sometimes, I don't know, even 7 bifurcations, not too much of an issue. Because the flow of the work is going to be exactly same as I have mentioned. Now let's go to all of these one by one. Now, first one is rather strange. It almost feels like, I know you all are student and you would be able to understand what I'm going to speak. It's almost feel like you have got a question of 5 mark. It's a theory question and you only know 4 bullet points. So what do? Create a random garbage globe kind of a point and just put it there. It's very important. Almost like analyze a transaction. What does that mean? It so turns out strangely that of all these 5 stages, this is the only tricky one. Rest all are going to be cakewalk for you. The only challenge is going to be that can you analyze the dual aspect? Basically, this is what we mean by this one. When we were preparing our accounting equation, we have already practiced for this one, this first one. That can you analyze the impact of a transaction, the 2 aspects of a transaction in your head. Once that is done, rest all is 100% procedure. It's like pick this thing here, put it there, this is from here, put it there. It's all as simple as that. Let me demonstrate how. We are going to get started. In the beginning, highly likely in the entire duration of the class today, we will be talking about step number 1 and 2 together. So let us get started with how do you analyze a transaction and how do you pass something which is called a journal entry. Then maybe tomorrow we will go to step number 3, 4, and 5. Let's get started. Now, as we have discussed with the accounting equation, exactly same method I'm going to follow today as well. We will be imagining certain different type of examples, and via those examples, I will be illustrating how this analyzing a transaction and passing journal entry works. Or somebody has a question. Yeah, please go ahead.
So before starting, I just had like a brief question. So,
yeah.
I've read like people who study like CA, I'm not from that background, like they say like there is a particular like accounting rules that have to be followed in like different countries. So can you just briefly like what are like the accounting rules that have to be followed like in terms of representation?
Okay, good question. Unfortunately, I don't have time to answer this today because what I'm going to teach you today needs to be all digested in one swallow. So if I break it up today and I go into accounting standard, I may not be able to achieve my objective, but I will simply mention. The point what he is talking about is that you kept on talking about the concepts. What about the rules? When we see the financial statement, it will be a product of rules as well as concepts. So we are getting the concepts here. Where do I get the rules? There is a good news, there is a bad news. The good news is that to understand the basic mechanism, you not only need to understand the basic concepts and ignore the rules, but also it is imperative because only then you will understand that how much flexibility is there. That part I have already told you. But then what about once you are already working in a company and you are not feeling confident? Then following would be some of the very commonly used or found set of rules that you may witness. One is called Indian Accounting Standards. One is called US GAAP, Generally Accepted Accounting Principle, and one is called an IFRS. Okay. If you want to prepare for an examination or if you want to simply understand the reporting of most of the companies that you will come across, I would say unless you start working in a company somewhere in Africa where there is no accounting rule at all, highly likely 90-95% of the chances the rules you will be facing will be among these 3. Unfortunately, we will not even have enough time to discuss all the concepts itself. We will feel that we are hard pressed of the time even to discuss the concepts. So we will definitely not have time to discuss the rules, but nonetheless they are important. Go ahead and check it out, especially the ones which are mentioned in IFRS, because this one is the most widely used. So you for different purposes, simply you can go ahead and keep checking at different places. The RNS book will also give you a help at this juncture. That there some of the rules aspect of the concepts are very specifically mentioned, but very important caution that don't do it at least in the first half. Before midterm, don't do it, please. Why? Because rules are always daunting. Suddenly you see all the rules and you will think, oh my god, accounting and financial statement is so difficult. No, it's not. It's just that different countries have prepared extensive different rules. So don't get bogged down by the rules. You can avoid them until the midterm. After midterm, go ahead and break your head over it. Right now, don't do it, please. Okay. So where to find it, how to find it, what to find, these are the things to find. These will not be the exhaustive. Where to find it, to begin with, your RNS book has some of the legal issues mentioned or reporting issues mentioned. Right now, my recommendation, don't break your head, because you don't even know all the concepts. Once you are fundamentally strong, then somebody can tell you, okay, this is how we prepare it. Then you would understand, okay, fine. Sometimes you will also question, though, no, this is against concept. How do you have this rule? Maybe you have read the rule incorrect, or maybe the country has passed certain incorrect rules. So this kind of understanding will be missed out. Okay. So that is briefly regarding the rules. Let's get the basics first, then you can learn the rules on your own. Let's get going. Now, what are we going to do today? Before we understand the step number 1 of analyze a transaction and step number 2 of passing a journal entry, I'm going to introduce you to a big fat lie that we have in accounting. I call it a lie. We have already seen it in some senses, but I will formally mention it. What is a lie? Whenever we are doing the dual aspect concept, every transaction has 2 aspects. Now, these 2 aspects can have only these possibilities where they affect. What do I mean by a lie? I mean asset, I mean liability, I mean income or gains, or expenses or losses. A transaction can either increase or reduce an asset, or increase or reduce a liability, or increase or reduce an income, or increase and reduce a loss or expense. That's the only 8 possibilities that these 2 aspects of any transaction can have. We have already seen this in the accounting equation, but we will use it today once again a little bit extensively. Now, if things look complicated, I will reduce them. To begin with, any reduction in an expense can be thought of as if they are income or gain. If your expense or losses reduce, then it is as good as talking about them as if it's a gain or an income. So I don't need this one. I don't need this one. So I'll get rid of this one. Similarly, about this one, any reduction in an income or gain can be thought of as if it's an expense or a loss. So I don't need to talk about this one also. So now we are left with only 6 that we will deal about. Within this 6 also, in the beginning, let us focus our attention only to first 4. That is, what if an income asset increases, liability increases, asset reduces, liability reduces. Now, what am I going to do is introduce something very horrible to you all. Why I say horrible is because especially engineers just dread this. So let me give this backdrop to you and then introduce it to you anyway. I am going to introduce 2 more jargons to you. Most dreadful jargons that you may come across ever in your life is going to be called a phrase called debit and a phrase called credit. Suddenly, some of you might have started, here it gets complicated. No, it will not. You just pay attention, and even here it will not get complicated. Okay. What do we mean by debit and credit? Have you heard of this word? I doubt whether you may have heard debit or not, except for, let's say, bank transaction or something which has anything to do with finance already. But in day-to-day life, you may not have used the word debit, but you may have used the word credit. Let me hear it from the class that what do you think the meaning of the word credit is? Don't use any connotation which you may have picked up from your finance transactions or bank details or anything. Apart from finance domain, have you heard of the word credit? If Ryan, go ahead.
The way of giving respect to someone for doing something.
Respect to somebody, okay, perfect. Sumit, go ahead.
Sir, praising or appreciating someone.
Praising, perfect. Respect or praising, okay. Let's say Pranshul, go ahead.
Favor.
Favor, okay, fine. Let's say Harinder, go ahead.
Someone who has done good in a field and praising him.
Who has done good and you are trying to praise him. Basically, these are the connotation. Ignore those salary and all. They have something to do with the world of finance, right? except something which has nothing to do with the world of finance. If you use simply the dictionary meaning of the word credit, what do you mean is what I just now asked. This is all that you mean. Okay, let's hear it from Saurabh also. ऐसा नहीं लगना चाहिए कि मैंने भी पैसे दिए. बताओ भाई Saurabh. Go ahead. Any new?
I heard it in my workspace when boss takes on our credits.
Sorry?
When bosses takes our credits.
Boss takes the credit. I will tell you. Let's say you won a movie award and then you say the credit goes to my friends and family. What are you talking about? That they kicked your butt? No, basically you are saying that they positively contributed in earning whatever they had a positive effect on you. Movie has ended and then credits and a lot of names are popping up. Who are these guys? Basically, these guys have positively contributed in creating a movie. That's what is the meaning of the word credit. Everybody with me so far? Now, in all of these meanings, one thing should be very clear to you. That tell me, if I simply mention a word, let's say I have done something and I say that credit goes to Javed. Am I talking about something positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive.
Everybody with me?
Positive.
That word credit has a strong positive connotation. Right? When I say credit goes to Javed means that he has positively contributed. It's all his effort. Now, this is the only part that I want you all to right now forget. Why I spent this much time of crucial class time? Because this one is the only hard thing to do, not because concepts are difficult, but it's simply because this is what we have been simply doing it so far in our life. The moment, let's say, two words are given to you, one is debit, one is credit. Can you say which one is good and which one is bad? Immediately you would feel credit should be good and debit should be bad, right? That is like so natural to all of us because this is the way we have been using the word credit. Maybe not, we are not that hard stuck about the word debit, but definitely about credit. That's all I want you to forget right now. So for that purpose, what I'm going to do is that instead of using the word full debit and credit, I'm going to use them the way they are meant to. These are not meaningful words when it comes to accounting. These are just codes. For example, let us say I say green and yellow. Can you say which one is good and which one is bad? No, these can be just simply codes without meaning. So that's all we are going to do. So it is for that reason, I'm going to write debit as DR and credit as CR. Actually, it's not because of that reason, but just to simplify the understanding. The reason is that in general, the short form of debit is written as DR and in general, the short form of credit is written as CR. Now, what I want, even before I introduce its meaning to the context that we are going to do is that I would repeat it once again. When we say in accounting debit and credit, we don't mean anything. This one is good, I don't know. Is this one good? I don't know. Then what is the use of this? The only use is that these are two codes to denote two sides of a table. The only meaning that is going to be, which table we will see tomorrow. But the only meaning is that if this name has been assigned to somebody, then the name credit should be assigned to something which is of opposite nature. So the only rule or the concept that is involved here is that these two terms are opposite of each other. That's the only concept here. Now, which one is good, which one is bad, I don't know. But both of these are opposite of each other. That's all I know. Up till here with me? Okay, even after I have said this, we will see soon enough that people would want to assign certain meaning to this, but we will keep reminding you that there is no meaning to the phrase credit. Okay, but just keep it in mind for the timing so that you know that that should be your default setup, that there is no meaning to it. All it means is that I have two codes and both of these codes are opposite of each other. Okay. Now we have two phrases. Let us go ahead and assign. Let us say I have two codes, yellow and blue. I don't know whether yellow is good or blue is good. I don't know. I don't care. Only thing I know is that yellow and blue are going to be opposite of each other for me. I have assigned two codes. Now what I'm going to do is that arbitrarily any of these 8 combinations or 6 combinations after reduction, I am going to assign one of these codes. The first one is going to be arbitrary. That means I'm free to assign any. But rest all should follow a logic. Let us say this first one. You guys tell me, should I call it yellow or blue? This first one. It doesn't matter. You will see it wouldn't matter, but you can name any one quickly. Any?
Yellow.
Okay, let's call this one as yellow. Now, once I have assigned the first one, rest all should follow an argument or a logic. First one I was free to assign. I could have assigned anything. But next all should follow a logic. What logic? If they are of the same nature, I will keep calling them also yellow. If they are of opposite nature, I will call them with the opposite code. That is code blue. Now, you guys tell me that if this yellow was increase in a liability was called yellow, what code should I assign reduction in a liability? Should I assign it same code or opposite code?
Opposite.
Opposite, everybody sees that increase in a liability and reduction are opposite of each other. If increase is called yellow, then reduction should be given an opposite name. So I will give this code blue. With me so far? First one I assigned randomly, but now I have a logic to derive this one. Let's go to the assets. If increase in liability was given a code yellow, what should increase in asset be given a code? Same or opposite?
Blue.
Code
Same.
blue or opposite? Because liability is opposite of the asset. So if increase in liability was given code yellow, then increase in asset should be of opposite nature, right? With me so far? So that is why I will give this code blue. Now, once we know that increase in an asset has been given code blue, can I say that what code should I assign reduction in an asset? Same or opposite of blue? Opposite of blue. That is why I will call this one yellow. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to classify everything in two sides, in two nature or two buckets or two baskets. What these baskets are going to be? These baskets, one of these is going to be called a debit and one of these is going to be called a credit. Now, what did I do is that arbitrarily I assigned one of these as a particular name. Here I have done a trick. I could have assigned here debit also, but I have used that one, which is also our convention. So once I have assigned a code to one of these, then rest all should follow logic. What? Among this 4 combination, if something else is of the same nature, we will assign it with the same code. If it is of opposite nature, we will give them opposite code. Now, if increase in liability is given a code credit, then reduction should obviously be opposite, right? You have two things to talk about. One hand, you have increase in a liability, another reduction in a liability. Obviously, they are going to be of opposite nature. You giving meat to somebody and somebody giving money to you. These definitely are two opposite things. These are not of the same nature. I said that if things are of opposite nature, assign them with opposite codes. So if credit has been assigned here, then here I have no option what to assign debit. With me so far? If I would have assigned a debit here, then I would have assigned credit here. With me so far?
Yes, sir.
Then, as a corollary, we extended it to assets. Now, asset and liability among themselves are opposite of each other. One is a resource, one is an obligation. So, if obligation increase is given this code, then obviously resource increase should be given an opposite code. That is why we are calling this one as debit. Now, let's go to the last one. Now, we know how to fill this up. If asset increase is given a code debit, then reduction of an asset should be of opposite code, because its nature is exact reverse opposite. So that is why we will call this one as credit. Okay. Now, before I proceed, let me tell you something. That very cleverly I assigned this one as credit. Okay. Because this is also our convention. Conceptually speaking, even if I would have called this one as debit, nothing wrong would have happened. But it would move beyond our convention. What is a convention? Let me demonstrate an example for this. So for example, you might have seen the map of the world, right? Let us say this is North America, this is South America, This is, let's say, Africa, this is Madagascar, and then India, it should be beautiful. And then Sri Lanka, and then Europe, and then everything in Australia. Okay. Have you seen the world map? You may not have seen it this neat, but you try to get the feeling. Now, my question to you all is that, is it mandatory for me to show North America on top? Would things conceptually be incorrect if I show entire map flip upside down? Earth is round, spinning in a vast cosmos. We don't know which side up, which side down. It is just that first few people who have created the map, they started using it in this manner and it became more popular. That's only reason why we still see it in this manner. It is exactly only for this reason why, because of convention, I would assign it the way it is assigned in our books. Or by books, I mean as it is in common practice. That increase in a liability will be called a credit. Otherwise, conceptually speaking, you can use your own code. Only use the concept is that use two codes which are going to be of opposite of each other, assign a random name, and rest all should follow a logic. If they are of same nature, assign same code. If they are of opposite nature, assign opposite code. With me so far, any questions? Okay, now how is it going to help me and what code should I assign here? I have two more things left. Now, right now, to just mention, I will just tell you what codes to be assigned here, because somewhere you have already seen the argument for the same. But if it gets confusing, we will take it a little bit forward. Okay, let's say when you were preparing an accounting equation, how were you writing income and how were you writing expenses? Where was it going? All the income and expenses were going in a one column only called retained earnings. What was the effect? Effect of incomes were that retained earning was increasing. Effect of expenses were it was falling down. And retained earning itself was in the side called liability. If I have two sides called assets and liability, retained earning itself was in the side called liability. Now, if you notice, then every income had the same effect of increasing a liability called retained earning. Every expense had an effect of reducing a liability called retained earning. With me up to this sentence? Now, it is for this reason we will also assign the corresponding head. So, increase in income has the same effect as if liability increases. Which liability? Retained earning. Do we have a code for increase in liability? Yes, it is this one. That is why we will call incomes as credit or increase in an income as credit. Let me repeat it in case you didn't get it first time for income. Let me repeat it for expenses. Whenever we were writing expenses, what was happening? It was reducing a liability. Which liability? Liability called retained earning. So an expense is happening. If more expenses happen, then more reduction will happen in our liability called retained earning. Owner's claim will fall even more. It is for that reason that for all the expenses we assign the same code as we have assigned for a reduction in a liability. What code have we assigned for reduction in liability? It is this code called debit. So that is why we will call expenses as debit. Okay. Now this last two, if you have gotten it conceptually right now, good. If not, don't worry, we will come back to this again. Now we are ready to start learning journal entries. We know all about debit and credit. That's all debit and credit. There is just one small little detail that we will see tomorrow.